I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our planning commissioners, grant them wisdom and courage to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. Would you do a roll call, please?
Certainly. Kevin is present. Nick?
Yes.
Brian?
Present.
Bonnie?
Present.
Andrea?
Present.
Tracy?
Present.
Dennis is not with us this evening. Ida? Here. Angel Bell from Rowe is not present. And Corey?
Here. Thank you. Minutes from May 14. Everyone had a chance to review them. We have a draft that was submitted. Any additions, notations, corrections?
I have to say, I love these minutes. You do such a wonderful job. Thank you.
Duly noted that our secretary has done a stellar job and continues to do such a stellar job.
I move to approve the minutes of the May 14th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
Andrea has moved to accept the minutes as they are, as supported by Tracy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Thank you all for approving the minutes. Correspondence. I only have one thing outside of our normal course of business. From Thumb Gun. I think you all have seen it. If you hadn't, I have it here. Ida had sent a letter to the new owners of Thumb Gun, Tansel, Ev, and he is not able to make it this evening. He was requested to make his appearance to meet the conditions of the special land use when the ownership changes, but he has affirmed that he will be here on July 9th. So hopefully he is able to make that meeting. Okay. I also have some other correspondence. It's probably as good a time as any. Brian has some obligations he's made, and he submitted his letter of resignation, which says it's going to be effective 1st of July. So we'd like to commend him for his time that we've had with him. He's done a fantastic job and was certainly a very welcome member of the Planning Commission, and will be sorely missed. So we wish you all the best and hope that you're able to come back in the future.
Mr. Chair.
I have a letter that we can put in a record as well for that. That covers all correspondence unless anybody else has anything to add. Public comments. I don't see anything there. Late agenda items. No. And Thumb Gun, again, was on the agenda, but he begged out. We have no public hearings. So, the new business, our revised corrected commission bylaws. There's been some back channel discussion on that. Has anybody bring anything to add, or I think that was Dennis was working on that, and since he's not here,
We're going to move to table that till next meeting.
yeah, I think we'll have to take a motion to table that. No, we'll table that till next meeting. when Dennis is here. Old new business, Blake's Almont Orchard, or Blake's backyard, I guess is probably the correct title. You guys are up. We have several reviews by our engineer and by our planner. There's many comments, and I'd like to run through them first. Don't I'll leave the comments for Corey for that, but I'll take where is it at here? Row, here it is.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did the applicant receive a copy of the reviews? Did you receive a copy of the?
I believe yesterday.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a copy from Row or from David's land surveying.
That's what I'm talking
That's
about.
correct, yeah. I just want to run through them. None of this is,
We received these yesterday.
yeah. So, like I said, we just want to run through them as a matter of record. There's nothing official yet, so, or decisions have been made. So, Roe came up with a lot of comments. Now, a caveat there is our normal planner, his last day was Friday. So the new reviewer did not have any knowledge of previous discussions of the current situation. They don't have any, they just use their standard textbook review, which, as you'll see, they were very thorough. The first item on the list is they include a set of photos, construction plans, and notes. They were not sealed by a registered architect. The proposed site plans shall contain the legal description. It wasn't provided. Provided photos, so you've got that. The scale. Without a planner here, we're kind of at a disadvantage, and I apologize for that, but this was all very short term.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Would it be okay if I just said a couple words?
Please.
Paul Blake, one of the owners.
Yes. Paul Blake.
Just to be clear, a couple months ago, we met with Dennis Swears, Gary Grossbeck, building inspector, Ida Lloyd. Pete and I shared our vision for Blake's backyard. We want to do real improvements there in the future. We want to be proud and make Almont Township proud of Blake's backyard. We have a lot of things going on, but this has always been our intent. It's just taken longer for us to get there. What we asked for in that meeting with the people I just spoke of, Gary and the building inspector and Dennis Swears, said we would like to put 20 feet onto our greenhouse. We went to the trust company, the greenhouse company, got engineered prints. We met with the fire department, fire marshal, met Stu out there, our building leader, and agreed on the fire route. We're willing to do all that. We want to get all the permits. We were told in that meeting that this should be pretty simple. When you guys really want to expand Blake's backyard, which we want to in a year or so, we will come back in with full-fledged engineered prints, whatever you need. Mm-hmm. What we're asking for is very simply a 20-foot addition. Mm-hmm. And we have the material on hand. We've had it on hand. We've been held up for now 30 days extra. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it's not an extended 30 or 60 days. We'll lose the whole season. Yeah. What we're asking for is we want to improve that location, and we know we got to do it. We're waiting for MDOT to help us with an entranceway, to get a professional entranceway in there. We're going to spend a lot of money there. Right now, we're trying to do this simple project. And And I look at it and what you've done in the township, it's really similar to what you did to our American Tree about 8 months ago.
No, and like I said, I don't want to get tied up in the minutia here. A lot of
I
these
just wanted the
things-
opportunity to explain where,
And we are, at least I don't want to speak for everyone. I agree that the last meeting you came to, we were all in agreement that this should be just slightly more than an administrative task.
Thank you.
And I think we can get there.
Okay.
I really do. Even though you see a lot of yellow on here, I think we can get there.
appreciate that. I just appreciate the opportunity to.
There were certain asks, Peter Blake, Paul's brother, there were certain asks at the last meeting, and I believe Stu fulfilled those requests. And I just want to make a notice that we did go back and complete what we were asked to do until we saw this form yesterday and kind of
Like I said,
took us back.
I agree that this is well beyond, I mean, they're talking about fire hydrants in here. There's no fire hydrants. So we understand that. You're not going to be putting fire hydrants in, so we get all that. What I wanted to do was allay your fears that we understand this is not what we talked, this is not what we talked about last month, and we understand that.
I want Almont Township to really understand that we have visions of making that a grand place, but it's not this year. It is a year away, 2 years away, and we will do it. And we will run through every ricket we have to make that happen, because we're dedicated to doing that. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I could, a lot of the comments that were in rows, I touched on them in my review.
Right.
So I could go through my letter, review letter, and go through some of the comments and directions that we have, and then any questions. I can point out some of the items that were rows. I do agree with a lot that was in there, but there's some of them because they're applying. Mentioned the hydrants. The hydrant is simply a stipulation to show any hydrants that are there. The way it was wrote says hydrants, so that is a standard line in there. Show any hydrants. There are none in the township. Well, there's some dry hydrants. I think you may have one on the pond north or east of the site, west of the site. But if I go through mine, we go through questions, because I think a lot of them are duplicate.
Yeah,
And
I'm okay with that, yeah, because I don't want to get caught up in the minutia here, but we do want to make sure that we address all of the items that we have to address legally.
So and that's a good point, because part of the stuff in the zoning ordinance for the requirements site plan, planning commission can address, waive, require. Some of the things they don't have any choice in the matter. So following the zoning requirements, and I think this was touched on a little bit, not every point, but it was touched on the process last month, with some key points that the planning commission brought out. But whenever it's a site plan, whether it's it's not really, you don't have an administrative avenue, but a site plan is required whenever there's a building permit required for erection, structural alteration to a building, parking, when there's additional parking storage area, or substantial change in use. There's just 4 or 6 criteria, really 4, that trigger that. And that's not something that the planning commission can waive, but they can streamline the process. So if I'll go through my review, and then when I get to the end, I have some general discussion or comments about it. So I mentioned the applicant's proposing a 24 by 96 hoop structure adjacent to and connected to their existing similar structure. The proposed building would expand the existing tasting room area, they said, for some additional learning, crafts, different things that are accessory to what they do there. The proposed hoop structure is planned to be located in an existing limestone surface area. And then the comments I have further are based on zoning ordinance 39 as amended. So what these are, the informational requirements, some can be waived, which I mentioned, some they just have to provide a clarification. So starting with the first comment, the plans are not signed and sealed by a licensed professional. The planning commission does have the ability to waive that. They don't deem that's relative to this type of project. It does not allow the planning commission to waive anything that's required for building permits. If there's something for those plans, that's not that. That's strictly as relates to a site plan. The legal description, the size of the property is not included. I did note that the address is provided on the application. There's a plus or minus acreage on the application, but typically that's just accompanied if they have a survey or some other documentation that can be submitted with it. That would cover that. The site plan does not include a measurement scale, so take the north arrow in a scale of some sort. The road right-of-ways for Van Dyke and Pine Lake Boulevard are not shown, and the existing and proposed contour elevations are not shown. The applicant has included a statement that the new hoop structure drainage will not change the existing drainage patterns. And then 42B9, which is a list of different items, and some of it is repetitive. It says the gross and net acreages are not shown, and there's no exterior lighting information provided, and if there is not going to be any, that's just a clarification that no additional exterior lights are to be part of this project. And again, that is very particular, because in the past, Almont has had issues with sites with lighting and whatnot. I don't anticipate or see anything here, and that could be a simple clarification from the applicant. The trash receptacle or dumpster location is not known. I know there are some on the site, typically just have to note the location. The front, rear, side setbacks are not shown. However, the applicant has provided the distance from the property line to the proposed hoop structure on one of the submitted sheets. Item J, the parking spaces are shown along the west side. The proposed structure, however, no information about the parking spaces provided, such as dimensions, surface material, setbacks, etc. A landscaping plan is not provided. The planning commission may review the existing vegetation and plantings to determine if the existing landscape is adequate. A surface drainage plan is not provided. And again, I just state the applicant has included a general statement indicating that no changes shall result to the proposed structure. It says, should be mentioned that the proposed hoop structures be located over an existing limestone surface. No surface water impact is anticipated due to the structure. However, the proposed parking will result in additional stormwater runoff, and I'll touch on that in a minute. So it appears that no hazardous materials are proposed to be stored outside. However, if there are fuel storage tanks, similar substances on the site plan must be revised to show the location. And then a simple loading, unloading area should be designated on the plan. And then in the engineering comments, the applicant is proposing an employee parking area west of the proposed hoop structure. The township requires parking areas to be hard surface via asphalt or concrete and include curb and gutter. Planning commission may waive the curb and gutter requirement, but the applicant will be required to obtain a zoning variance for parking that is not hard surfaced. It should be noted that the overall site includes significant existing parking. The applicant provides information indicating the number of existing parking spaces is adequate for the overall facility employees. Then the proposed employee parking may not be required. They wouldn't have to do any hard surfacing or what have you. So those are my overall comments. Again, this is a fairly straightforward project, but there are some things that the planning commission, you just have to check off a list basically. So, and that's more or less what these are. I don't see anything from engineering and I kind of step into the zoning, but setbacks, issues with it. It's just information's not there. And the proposed structure itself is over existing limestone surface. So as an engineering standpoint, there really isn't any concern for engineering for stormwater runoff, which is the number one thing we look at when we do our engineering review. So I wanted to kind of spell this out, and I want to do it in a way that indicated there's informational deficiencies, but as far as the project location itself, there isn't any engineering or infrastructure issues that I could see through that review. So if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And again, I think a lot of my comments were similar to what Roe had. They had a few that they like talk about the hydrants, things that they weren't aware of just because there's somebody new dealing with that. But I did get a chance to review their letter, and I'd say most of them kind of duplicate on there.
Peter or Paul, I would assume that the parking is going to be a huge sticking point.
No, not really. I think we can address that. I appreciate what Corey said. Understand just about 95% of what he said. So parking won't be a problem. We have 20 some acres there. Parking is not a problem. Again, when we come back in,
I meant designating it on the west side of the structure,
that
the
will-
additional part.
That will be employee parking only.
And the reason I brought that up, if it is parking of any time, there isn't anything that this commission can do to waive the hard surface. You may get a variance to do it, and the ZBA may grant it, and then you're fine. But although I was trying to get this to be an avenue, if you demonstrate you have employee parking anywhere else on any surfaces you have, then you don't need this. If you need it in the future, then you can show it and be prepared for it and go through
Would
that.
it be advantageous for us to not show parking there and put it on our existing parking lot where we have lots of space?
Yes,
If-
that's,
If you do that, like, so you demonstrate you have a simple number, say how many parking spaces you have, and it meets it, then you don't need it, and you don't show it, and then you're fine. If you do show it, then you gotta meet the requirements that are spelled out for it.
Fair enough. At the last meeting, it was explained to us differently.
Well, at the last meeting, it was designated that you had to show where the parking was gonna be on the west side, and then we kind of briefly went over the criteria. So it was gonna be, and it was noted last meeting that was gonna be employee parking area, kind of in some, next to the building, because there was parking there currently. So we discussed it at some length. And then to do the parking, you just had to meet the requirements. So that's why it was, and I can understand some of the confusion, because we did not go in depth in all the requirements. It was just basically you had to meet the township requirements if you're gonna have parking there.
They have a parking.
Sure, and that is why I mentioned it, because you can see the site.
Growth of the place.
So-
I didn't want to be too redundant, but when we come back in here a year, 12 months, 18 months from now, I think we're going to address every one of those things you're talking
Yeah,
about. We're going to want hard
Retention
stuff.
pond.
Yep.
We're gonna want them.
And
But right now, that's not what we're asking for. I don't think we need it. We're asking to get this first step going. Allow us to continue to grow that business. And we will make the improvements that Almont Township wants us to make.
that's why I mentioned that in the letter, was to get through this initial step. If that parking west of that building goes away on this plan, then the parking's not a concern. So that's the reasons. If it stays on here, this is what the commission has to review and look at. They can't approve it because it's not hard surface. You would have to go the variance step, which again would be at least another 30 days. So that's why I tried to mention that if that goes away, parking comments go away.
You, Corey, can you touch the first comment here on the fourth B one, you mentioned what they can and can't waive. As we went through this, can you educate me a little bit on what can be waived, not waived, and on the rest of the plans that you put out?
To require the plans to be signed and sealed by a professional, that is something that they can accept without, based on what the site plan is saying, or they can require it to be signed and sealed. So that's something that they can waive based on what's being proposed. The lighting plan, which is a requirement, if it comes out that you're not proposing any additional outdoor, and this is only exterior lighting, that's something they can accept, that the applicants indicated there'll be no exterior lighting. And what that means is that you don't put exterior lighting, because that would be a violation. We put a pole or put something on a building. And if it's not critical at this point, like I said, you come back a year from now and you're gonna have this lighting however you want it, that's fine.
I think that's the path we would take. We wouldn't put it up if we don't want us to.
Yeah, and the other item is landscaping. Landscaping is a requirement. Clearly you have, it's not an issue with what you do, and there is landscaping along the streets that was put in there originally. There's street trees on both sides, so that is something that is a landscape plan. The planning commission can say, yes, we're comfortable with what's there is adequate for the screening and the intent of the landscape plan. So those are the main ones that they can do. All the other ones, again, if you put through it, it's a lot of information. There's not a lot of comments. It's basic. If you put this on however you can configure a title block on it, you put a north arrow, a rough scale on it, and then just some basic notes that these are addressed. I think you're through that. Like the setbacks, we show the right of way on Van Dyke, which is 120 feet, 60 feet each way. I forget about Pine Lake. You show that where that's at. A lot of these things are pretty simple. As long as the planning commission doesn't require things to be signed and sealed. That's something I think, based on what you submitted here, I think can be done with however you put these together.
Sure. Yeah, it was by no part of not being knowledgeable or leaving things off or to be, facetious about things, but like the hydrants, the fuel tanks, the things, I didn't know what was privy, not privy in some of the drawings, and we didn't get too fancy with it, just for the simple fact that it's just another addition to the greenhouse. It's not an overall
Yep.
landscaping structure that, it's not a big project in our mind, but I understand you have to.
Yeah, it's completely understood, and I think that was discussed at last meeting, that it's not a big project.
Sure.
What you run into is in Almont, and they're working on the ordinances, there's not an administrative out. You know, some communities I work in have that, some don't. But there is still, whether you're doing what you're doing or you started from scratch and you want to build all of this right now, there's a checklist of things.
Sure.
And it does amount, in cases where they're a minor project like this, that it is basically a checklist. And the problem you get into, not for you, but if the planning commission goes through and doesn't file the checklist, the next president comes and say, well, they didn't file the checklist there, don't make me do it. And that's no reflection on anything here, that's just what happens. So that's why it's kind of a checklist items, and I tried to spell it out like that. I don't see any, and I mentioned this before, I don't see any engineering issues. It's a very simple project as far as what you want to do, and I understand some of the frustration which you got to go through. But unfortunately with zoning, their zoning is not unusual how they do that. It's just a checklist of items, it's on there.
Are you referring to the, like the Almont Township site plan checklist that's in their application packet? Where
That-
yes, no, not available, comment?
That kind of mirrors it. There's zoning submission requirements in the zoning ordinance is what that's kind of off of. I mean, this is the ordinance. That's just like a basic knowledgeable checklist to go through that. If you did every item on there, that gets you pretty close. It might be a couple minor things. And I did see you submitted that. There's some things that I went through there and just had a different point on it, and that's what came in my letter.
Correct, yeah, it gets pretty in depth in there. Transformers, this, that,
Right.
you know, some of it was just not available or.
And not applicable. And so it doesn't all apply. You're right. You're absolutely right. A lot of that does not apply.
Okay.
So the things that were mentioned in here, which were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 16 items out of that long list. 16 items I thought they had to be clarified or information provided. So, and some of it is simply that we're not doing any lighting part of this project. You know, the planning commission determine if you need to be signed and sealed. Planning commission determine if you're landscape. So there's a lot of it's informational. So I put those on there too. So it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Questions or comments?
So this is what I have so far. Waive requirement for plans to be signed and sealed by a licensed professional. Remove west side employee parking off of your plan. Approve existing vegetation and plantings as is. Provide front, rear, side yard setbacks on the plan. Show where the trash receptacle will be located. Show loading and unloading area. Show right of ways. And that can all be done. Can that all be done?
That can all be waived.
So that cannot all be,
It'll be,
that can be done contingent.
That can be contingent.
I'm not waived, I apologize,
Yeah.
that was the wrong term.
yes, once that's like a contingent
We can accept
approval.
the site plan based on those contingencies.
Yes. Are there any other contingencies? Is that it? Is that good?
That's good. The only thing I'd ask for is get clarification regarding the lighting and hazardous material. If that's there, you can include that in the minutes, that they say, no, there's no hazardous, or.
Is there
I don't know, if
hazardous
you do have a
material?
fuel tank on site, you just show it on the plan. If there are none, it's simple. There's no hazardous material stored on site. And there's no lighting proposed part of this project. And they can either put a note on the plan with the other stuff, or just note it in the minutes, so it's part of your final notations.
So show hazardous materials if applicable and lighting plan if applicable. Yes?
Do the current hoop buildings that you have that you're just adding on to, do they have exterior lighting? No, so you're not planning on adding exterior lighting to this building either? Okay, thank you.
In the motion, I would know no exterior lighting is proposed, and you're good. You have a record that it's not there, and you can move on.
Entertain a motion to approve or deny.
I move to approve contingents upon the following requirements for Plan 00207-146, Blake's Backyard Proposed Hoop Structure at 5590 Van Dyke Road. Contingents waive requirement for plans to be signed and sealed by a licensed professional. Remove west side employee parking off of the plan. To approve existing vegetation and plantings as is. Provide front, rear, side yard setbacks on the plan. Show where a trash receptacle will be located if there is one. Show the loading and unloading area. Show right-of-ways. Show hazardous materials if applicable. And there is no exterior lighting on the plan.
Support.
Motion was made by Andrea Barr and supported by Bonnie Kraus. Any discussion, any additions or comments based on her description of the contingencies?
One thing I'll bring up, for the site plan, or being reviewed, site plan being reviewed by a licensed professional, I guess we need to decide, do we want to set a precedent here? And if so, what is the precedent being set on? I know American Landscape was brought up, and one thing I'll bring up that I would differentiate the two is just occupancy. And I don't know that occupancy would be enough to bring in a licensed professional on a hoop structure per se, but it might be something to consider.
Way to, I guess, in precedent is something you should absolutely be concerned about. The different, or what the licensed professional is for the site plan, which is zoning, engineering. It does not alleviate any requirements for the occupancy or the structure of the building. So that still will follow building code, whatever the requirements to have those signed and sealed, that does not take that away.
Okay.
So that would be something, and that can be clarification before site plan only, but that is implied because you're in the zoning ordinance. It does not alleviate, as part of the site plan, all they have to show you is a basic floor plan and elevation drawings, which they did. So that's the basic thing. You're not approving any building plans, you're basically approving location and appearance. So it does not alleviate the requirement of the building department or any code for that structure, for occupancy, for commercial use, whatever it may be, and I don't know that. Doesn't alleviate any requirements for those being signed.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, just to remind you that American Tree, they took the gold site plan, put the tracing paper over it, and drew what they were going to do. That tracing paper didn't have a seal, and of course, they had the advantage of having the original site plan handy, which they could do that. So, did it have a seal? Not really.
Right, I understand that. Yes. It was merely an addendum. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I'll add that 99.9% of the time you want signed and sealed. I don't think this is the precedent because this is a building that almost all the reviews are going to be based off building department. As far as a typical, when you get a site plan approved, we'd have a pre-construction meeting, we'd be involved, we've had inspection deposits and all the other items, and that's not going to be the case here. Once this gets done, as far as our end of it, we would be called out at false, and there is a bunch of parking there. There's issues with the site plan. Other than that, we would have no involvement with it. So it's not this would be the case where you could consider that because it's purely basically building department inspection.
And once the parking goes away, especially the impervious service parking goes away, then it really isn't that big of a site plan improvement. It just becomes, again, the hoop building, which is a minor site plan improvement versus a major site plan improvement.
Correct.
This is very similar to the small addition at Bentec. A small little doesn't really change anything.
At Vintech, we had no involvement once they got.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, same thing. It was a little 1,200 square foot addition onto something that was there.
They are going to want engineered drawings the next time you come back.
Would it be, based off of Andrea's list with the bullet points she went through that would be required to us to have, is it an option that, so the signed and sealed by a licensed professional, that would be waived then? And-
Yes.
We waived it this time,
Understood.
at this iteration,
If the motion passes, that was part of the motion.
For the hoop building.
strictly for the hoop building
Understood.
addition.
Yep.
Well, I see no other further discussion, no changes or additions to Andrea's motion. Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Kevin,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Tracy, and Dennis is absent.
Motion carries to approve the site plan 25, or application 25002 for Blake's Backyard. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Clarification on the next steps is just whenever that information that was on there gets on a plan, you don't have to come back here. You take it to Ida and Ida would have it, and the chairman would review it. As long as it meets the motion, then they sign it, and that's that. So,
And then you're eligible for your building permit.
Appreciate it. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of the community. You guys,
Yes, thank you.
a lot of people enjoy your venue there.
Appreciate that.
Yes, they're having something special Friday.
Yes, they are.
Did you get your tickets?
and one thing about too, when you do get to the point where it's next year, 2 years, or down the road on the larger project, I'd recommend getting, even if it's not 90% together, when you have the concept together, what you want, you can do a pre-application meeting here. I don't even think there's a cost to it. You can sit down and put it on there, you can get all this input before you final stuff out. So that can kind of streamline a lot. Not gonna say it hits every point, but it definitely helps get everybody done going on the same road, so.
Corey, can you help us get them
Yeah.
3 fixed?
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, that'd be nice. I will say the people at MDOT now, the new TSC director is pretty good to work with, but yeah.
Okay, moving on. Subcommittee update on the solar energy. Do you have anything, Bonnie?
I think we're tabling that until next.
Other than the correspondence that's gone back and forth?
Yeah. Yeah, because we kind of got caught flat-footed when Alex
Right. Yeah, okay.
resigned, so that kind of took the wind from our sails for a month.
That will be tabled
Wind from our solar
until further notice.
solar panels.
Your solar wings.
That's right.
We have no planner report, so that moves us on to Corey.
I just have a verbal report this month. Really 3 items. Pinecrest was, I believe, finally accepted at the township, so the roads are current. They can get building permits in there. The only thing that they're still working is they're gonna see some movement of earth because they're building the building pads now as part of this overall part, but they went through, that's kind of a,
Wait, they're moving before they have building permits?
no,
Did I
they can pull
misunderstand?
building permits, but part of the overall project now is they're doing some balancing on the building pads that have to come up. So they have. to pull
On underlying solar.
Yeah, so
Okay.
technically, they were approved for the roads were all publicly approved and accepted. The township part of the site planning portion for the road project is done, but there's still an open soil erosion permit. They still posted some bonds and fees with the township, and township's still active in a minor capacity while they're moving material around to build individual building pad areas. They still have to pull their building permits for each home and go forward, but essentially the road project is closed out. It's done. And then Legacy Metals has asked for a final inspection tomorrow, so I'll be meeting with them tomorrow. And then Jimmy's Storage, they're working on the building slabs currently. And then once the building slabs are done, they'll move on to the actual drive and asphalt services. The storm sewers we mentioned before is in. Detention pond, they do have MDOT's permit now, so it took a while, but they do have that permit. So they have.
They did get a drive.
They have all the permits. They just have to work through that, so. And those are really the only ones that have any change from last month.
Thank you. Thanks for your hard work on this, by the way, in the short term that you had to
Sure.
get it done in. Zoning Board of Appeals, Bonnie Kraus, the floor is yours.
We haven't had any meetings, but do you have an update on the moving of the?
We did relocate it and he came in, or I should say the wife came in a week and a half ago, picked up a building application and I'm yet to see it, so.
Who is that for?
This was the shed that was built
Oh, right, it has to
in
be.
the setback, and we
yeah.
required it to be moved. So, so it got moved. Removed or moved?
Moved.
Okay.
Still on the property, but I have not seen anything.
Other than that, we haven't met, so.
Good, well, it's all moving forward. On to Planning Commission general comments, anything?
Ida,
Skip, Ida.
Oh, I apologize. Zoning and building report. Zoning administrator Ida Lloyd, I apologize, I read beyond.
A couple things, I got a call from an engineer. He has plans that we're looking at purchasing 4296 Van Dyke, the strip mall, where the doctor's office used to be.
oh,
They want to put a gas station in.
what?
I drive by the location and I'm not sure where they would put it, but
On
Is
the
that-
strip mall parcel?
Is that a permitted use there?
it would be a permitted use.
They would have to come into you for a special land
Oh,
use.
yeah.
It would need a special land use, yes.
It's
It's
not
not
permitted
permitted
under
then.
current.
Okay.
current
It's a
land
special
use.
land use.
Well, it's commercial.
Yeah, it would have to
They
be
still have to
industrial,
for the,
I mean, that's so close to the other gas station.
Well, they,
Can't really
right?
dictate that.
I don't have to think
these
about it.
people have been looking at a lot of property in Van Dyke.
Is it a Sheets?
Pardon me?
Is it a Sheets gas station?
I have no idea. When I asked, they gave me a couple names and I said, in other words, you don't have any idea, you don't have any ground yet, so. But these people have been up and down Van Dyke.
the largest hurdle they'll get is zoning, MDOT access, because there's only that shared drive,
Yeah,
and septic. The septic's gonna be the number one thing you'll have to work through.
and if they remove any parking, they have to replace it. Plus, they have to give us a route around the tanks and, you know, where everything's.
Yeah, they would, it'd be a full site plan.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
it'll be a-
It's just
Is there-
south of
what's-
Paul's? Is
Anybody
that
know how
where
big
we're
that
looking?
parcel is? Is
It's,
that even,
A fairly large part.
You know
Is
where
it?
Dr. Watts was?
oh, is it?
It's that strip mall. I think there's like,
Interesting.
I don't know, I think it is south of
Sure.
Paul's,
Just
on the west side.
it goes kind of east-west?
What's
Yes.
planning
Oh, okay.
commission sees along Van Dyke, I know there's been talk. We have property, south of town, Boardman on the east side, Boardman and Van Dyke. We have Christmas Street planned out. And, I believe it's been commercial for a long time. What does the planning commission see highest and best use for that property in the future? Because we've been approached by a couple of people for different things that we really haven't been actively.
Is that south of the gun store?
Yes.
Right on the corner.
Yeah, that was, I forget his
I'm
name.
curious, what would you like to see there?
I mean, it's all zone commercial, right? That's our commercial
Unfortunately, what
corridor.
We personally would want,
We're not, I
really.
mean, we're not at liberty to say, I mean, we can, anything commercial, anything that fits the master plan. Look at the master plan.
Chick-fil-A?
Well, is that true? Is that what you like? Because,
You seen the lineup for the one in the four-year?
what about a gas?
Or the one at Hall Road?
Spot for a gas station, is that frowned upon or is that looked upon as needed?
That's all within the master plan.
We have to go through the health department, the zero well and stuff in there, and that's. what
That's,
we go
yeah,
There's a lot of pro-business members on this commission though.
That we-
If someone would like to take a stab at it and you meet the requirements, then have at it.
yeah, that's not, we've already been approached by that. The biggest problem you're gonna run into are the, drives off of Van Dyke. You're only gonna get one.
Which they're currently there.
Yeah, and the water and septic is gonna be a big hurdle.
Well, I don't think water would be a problem, plenty of water, but septic, yes.
But we've been approached, does anybody remember that guy's name? He was here 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Gary and I and Dennis met with him back in February or March, and he was gung ho on the same thing, buying those 4 lots there. And he bought the theater in town, I believe, in the doctor's office. That gentleman, I just can't recall his name right now, but,
It was, Nick, wasn't
yes, Nick.
it? Locked up.
Yeah, and that was his plan as well, a restaurant, a chain restaurant, TGI Fridays or whatever, Chili's, or I don't think they're in business anymore, but, that type of chain restaurant, gas station, were his pie in the sky type ideas.
Doesn't like food.
It has to be your soils in there. And I know that's kind of hit and miss on that side where it can be very sandy. There can be a pocket of clay in there. I'm familiar with all that area. But if you get past the health department on the septic, that's going to be the biggest hurdle for those type of uses by far. And as far as, the experience of the planning commission is, rezoning, you can get a lot of interpretation and opinion on a rezone. Special land use, while you can get input, that's just kind of guiding if it's in there, but if you don't have special land use, as long as you meet site plan requirements, and that's the job to review that you meet those requirements, then it's what you want then. A special land use gives a little more flexibility, but even that's kind of spelled out what you have to do.
And we just completed our master plan, so you might want to just take a look at that.
It's all available online, Almont Township.
Okay, one more thing, did your Tenza notify you that Intent is looking at, possibly, they've got a new contract with, one of those factories, anyways, they would have to build a really huge factory.
A huge what?
Yes,
Factory,
they have to build another building out to the west
yes.
or to the
I
south.
haven't heard anything in a month, so I don't know where it's gonna go, but
I can poke around.
I know I haven't heard from him about it, so no one seems to be coming in for those, permits for the, chargers.
Well, it's not really, he's doing the mobile, they're building a lot of mobile vehicles right now to do the charging, so I think he might put that on the back burner.
I figured so.
But the further we get away from it, the further we get away from getting just a simple site plan with where it's going is all I asked for. And it's not an unreasonable ask by this planning commission when you're asking for an update to a site plan when you gave an administrative approval. So I personally think another letter needs to be sent. I mean,
I can, email Eric and just see, what your thoughts are right now on it.
I'm gonna ask about every single month. You can just know that.
Has he tabled it? Have they tabled it? Put it on the back burner? Because I haven't heard anything either.
And it could be, as you said, they're busy with other projects that this might not be on the forefront.
I just wonder if charger even is a requirement.
I'm sorry?
I just wonder if charger even would be a requirement, like a mandatory requirement on a plan.
He came before you to change his plan to put the chargers in.
I think he
So,
really wanted to change his plan. He just asked if he could put the chargers in. I don't know those, rules, but I mean,
but it was also taking up parking spots that would be,
but they're still parking.
right. But if you're charging a vehicle, then then it's taking up a spot.
We can't control that. Number of parking is just number of parking.
It's just a crayons on a site plan. It's not, we're not asking for engineered
No,
plans.
I just wonder if it's a requirement, like to force him to do it, is my only question. Like, does a car wash or a gas station have to have a vacuum cleaner that's on the curb on their site plan?
Where is this located at?
Inner Power,
Next door to Novak's.
north side of Novax, he came in, it was almost
6
last
months
year,
ago.
yeah. It was either in January or December of last year. And they wanted to add an additional fast charger. They have 2 chargers now up against the building that are taking up parking spaces, 4 of them. And he wants to add another fast charger, which is basically a battery on a pad that is almost like a capacitor that dumps the charge in 15, 20 minutes, half hour, as opposed to 3, 4, 5 hours on a regular charger.
So what I would say with something like that, I think Bonnie's correct. If it takes up parking, there has to be some way to address it. And if it's very simple, like if they were to do something like that, it would follow their site plan, especially if they have a special land use, that's something you would have to see. But if there's no special land use and it's a site plan, the reason it will come to you is if it does impact a fire lane, a parking spaces, that's the instance it will come. If there's a location that wasn't part of that and it's very minor, typically it would go to the building department, and if it's just a minor thing, then you wouldn't see it. But if it does go in spots of parking, then usually that you would see it. It may just be a simple mock-up on the plan. It's usually nothing major, but you have to keep a file of what's approved on these issues, on these spots.
Well, I was being more devil's advocate than disagreeing with Bonnie. I just didn't know the rules because it's still a parking space.
Yes, but it's open to the public. It's not employee. It's not where.
I didn't know that was differentiated. I thought number of parking spaces for commercial, industrial was just number of parking spaces.
Well, that is, but when you get a chart, and
I'm just asking the mark because I don't know.
you're absolutely right in that, but the parking spaces but parking spaces by ordinance have to be designated purely for parking, and then charging stations kind of that new thing where you are dedicated charging spots. Like if you have a charging station, you don't want somebody pulling in there that has a, Dodge pickup truck and sit there all day. That's not so the use of the spot is what would trigger that. But yes, if it's industrial, this is your parking spot, this is what you have. And that's why I said they had another spot that they put this unit here, parking stays the same. Then it's probably something you wouldn't see. So it's a location and how it's laid out. And it may be a zoning compliance, where they just come out and look at, you're not impacting the site plan and parking. You're fine. Oh, you're impacting the parking, you go talk to the planning commission. So if the location is where they're taking away parking, and now that 50 spots is now 46, then that's not what the site plan is approved. So they would have to come in and just request to say, hey, we only really need 35. We have 46, and the planning commission can make a motion, say, we've seen your information, you're good with it. If he puts it in a spot where you have 50, you still have 50, we got another spot over here that we haven't been using for parking, it probably wouldn't even come in front of you.
So my understanding is action was already taken on this at the planning commission level. They were allowed to put these charging units in those parking spaces. And it came back after I got on board. And all I simply said was then the site plan just needs to reflect the change in the plan. We're not asking for engineered plans. We're not asking him to hire an engineer. We're just simply saying, take your existing site plan and just write on there where these charging stations are. It's not difficult.
He has two pedestals right now on the east side of the building.
And then he was supposed to be one on the south side.
They were gonna put it, well, there's no access to the south side of the building.
That drawing that I got, but it was just a little extra mark or something.
Couldn't see it. Couldn't see it.
As far as I know, the only place that would be accessible would be the north side of the parking lot. But that's what I took it to be, the north side of the parking lot.
And that's why it comes in, because if they put it in a side setback or in a front, not knowingly doing that, that's something that they have to be aware of. You can't put it there. So that's why these things are typically on approved site plans, or especially special land use, and I don't know if that applies here. The special land use, they do have to come in on any changes. But again, it's very minor. That we probably wouldn't have any involvement unless there's a huge, an issue. Planning probably wouldn't have any involvement. But it is something you would want to look at. And like I said, unless it's not impacting parking or your zoning stipulations were part of that site plan.
Can you draft some correspondence?
Yeah,
To Eric.
I'll send an email back to
Eric and Gary.
Asking him if,
Okay.
and if we could get a better site plan. Well, does anybody know, did the property north of him, interpower and stuff? Because I see a driveway going.
So what, Bill?
A driveway.
Well, that's his property right now.
That.
The north, the lot on the corner of Hollow Corners and Van Dyke, north of Interpower.
He bought it off of,
Gary bought that some time ago, yes.
okay. I was just curious, I see the driveway.
I have a question. The property in Amanda across from our store, right next to Choice One Bank, is that zoning that recently changed when the master plan was changed?
I didn't go through
I
most of the
don't think we
master plan.
changed it. I think it's always been commercial, that whole
Well,
corridor.
That was changed when Sal bought it, Bristol's. The front is commercial, and then we have the back of it, zone R1.
I think you're talking about different pieces. Yeah, right next to Choice. 20 acres.
Oh,
It's 18 acres.
just to the, oh, okay, no.
Our family's connected to.
Yeah.
That is commercial, is it all one class of commercial now, I think?
The master plan all calls it out as commercial, but there are 3 classifications.
That was on our list to change though.
Classifications, no?
That would be zoning, the zoning would have changed, the master plan classification to it.
We simplified the master plan classifications to just commercial, to make it easy to differentiate it between industrial and commercial. But inside that commercial, there are different levels of commercial at the zoning level, not at the master plan level.
That is owned commercial on the master plan.
Oh, it's, well, it's currently zone C1.
Or I'm sorry, future land use, yeah.
Yeah, the master plan doesn't change the zoning, it just tells you what they got envisioned for the future, so.
So contingent on the right plan, it has possibilities. Correct.
Sure.
Does a Chick-fil-A take a C3?
And they have a lot of possibilities.
Does that take a C3 or a C1?
I don't know, it takes a yes vote, and there it is.
All right, I'm coming to see you.
Okay.
The problem that you mentioned, and I believe, Long Band is going to give you one, right? And that probably is.
It's based on spacing. You could get 2 if you have enough frontage. It's based on spacing.
What if we have around the backside on the Huff Road?
Mhm.
That's going to be part of it as well.
Well, that'd be county, so yeah, MDOT would have no say. The MDOT would strongly encourage you to use Huff Road and have no entrances. I'm just telling you, that would be their first discussion point, but they're governed by spacing. So if you have enough frontage, you could have multiple, but you have to meet the spacing requirements. But yes, you could connect Huff through there, and that'd be a county entrance,
That'd be
and that
nice.
would be less simpler than MDOT.
But my comment about the cut-ins was strictly based on what you currently have. They're not, if you only have 1 now, they're not gonna give you 2.
We don't, you guys are talking about two different properties. I'm talking about, right, he's talking about Huff Road, I'm talking about Boardman.
Yeah.
Boardman's already in. Yeah, there's one, there's a shared one with the gun place, and then there's another one that's in there for the other lots. We're well aware, that's all they're gonna give us there. I think what Pete was suggesting is further to the north near Huff Road. There's 19 acres there.
Goes around the bank.
It goes around the bank, and his question was the opportunity there based on the zoning. There's enough property for a sizable septic field. Is it 19 acres? So, Almont Township has a dream, let us know. We know what
Bring
Nice
commercial
Chick-fil-A.
business. That based on the master plan, bring commercial business. That's the dream.
Urgent care.
Yeah, urgent care. How about some doctor's office?
Just ask on Facebook.
Bring water and sewer, we can bring that.
No.
You wouldn't get an argument from me.
Good luck.
That's a no.
another thing altogether. Well, that was a nice lighthearted discussion. It's all off the record. All of that. And none of that is
No
on the
record
record.
of Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. I guess that covers general comments.
I have one question.
Yes,
When
ma'am.
I was watching the meeting Monday, they were saying Tenzo was in violation of his special land use for
No.
crushing concrete at incorrect hours? No?
He
Okay.
is not crushing concrete, he has never crushed concrete. He brings concrete on the property and then trucks it out.
Okay.
There's been noise complaints.
Noise
From
complaints.
neighbors
Okay.
that he was crushing concrete. He did have approval to crush his own concrete
What was
for
left
his
over.
site use only, but not to commercially crush concrete. And the concrete crusher broke and he never brought another unit in. Is my memory correct there?
That's what we always were told, yes.
So,
Well, they also said he was working 7 days a week, the person that was complaining at the meeting on Monday, that he's working 7 days a week, from 6 to 8 or something, like.
I have no comment because I don't know
Yeah.
one way or the other.
I don't know what the result was.
He's there, his job is working, didn't know it's working.
The
Right.
yard hours are still strictly adhered to,
Correct.
and that's understandable.
And he's not here in the Webster Road, and there is, the road commission actually is doing that.
I'm sure they are.
Okay. Nothing is left on the agenda.
I'd like, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity to serve with all of you on the Planning Commission. As was stated earlier, had some unforeseen circumstances presented in my life that, with 3 kids under the age of 5, wouldn't allow the focus to be on the township, and really thought it would be best in everybody's interest to resign. And I just want to say it's certainly not a goodbye. You'll see me around town, hopefully. And serving with all of you has been a pleasure, and I just want to thank everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. You've been such a great commissioner and such an asset to our township. We really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
So then we'll leave the vote on secretary at the next meeting.
Township board has to appoint.
I think they have to appoint a replacement
Oh,
first, but
Okay.
I don't have the bylaws in front of me, but I would assume that Gary will appoint someone in the meantime. Barring that, we would need a stand-in, at least in the interim, for that meeting.
I only have a couple candidates, and it is on the website, so we may get some more candidates. More positions.
I have nothing else to add. Take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
We have a motion by Tracy and Nick with the support by Andrea. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays? The motion stands. Thank you all for your time and effort this evening, and I appreciate all of you. Good luck, John.